Hello, this is QuickSkillz, and today we're doing some tips and tricks for the Super Console X2 Pro. I do want to mention that if you own a retro console and it has Emuelec on it, that these tips and tricks are going to work for that as well. Also, if you have yet to purchase a retro console, go to the description of this video. I'm going to have a link that's going to take you to the exact same Super Console X2 Pro that I have here on the screen for you to purchase at home. Now, in this video, we're going to be going through some commonly used features that I use every day when I use my Super Console X2 Pro and some quality of life issues that will improve your game experience overall. To get started, let's just assume you've plugged this in and you have yet to set up any controllers. What do? Well, when you plug in your controller, you'll probably see a menu that looks like this. You are going to map a controller, map based on the button's position relative to its equivalent on the SNES controller. That may not pop up for you automatically. If it doesn't, let me show you how I got there. So from this screen, when you plug in your controller, if it doesn't automatically take you to that screen, all you're going to do is push start on your controller. You're going to go down to controller and Bluetooth settings. You're going to go to controller mapping, and then you're going to push A, and then you're going to push a button on the controller that you want to configure. So if you have two controllers plugged in, you're going to do this for each controller. So once you have your controller selected that you want to configure, you're going to push up, down, left, and right on your D-pad. You're going to push start and select. And then these buttons here, when it asks for button A, it's always going to be the far right button on your controller, and there's a picture of which one they're talking about. This button B is going to be the lowest most button on your controller. This one's going to be the topmost button, and this is going to be the leftmost button. And then we have left shoulder, left trigger, right trigger. So those are going to be the bumper buttons and then the trigger buttons. And then the left thumb, right thumb, that is pushing in the joystick. So we're going to push in the left joystick, the right joystick. And then on the joystick, we have to push up, down, left, and right on the joystick. And then on the right joystick, we're going to go up, down, left, and right. Your hotkey is going to be any button that you want, but I recommend you use the select button. So let's push the select button here. And that is how you configure a controller. Now, one thing that you might encounter is you might not have analog sticks on your controller. So what do? So let's just move down here. So let's say you just have the left stick or you have neither. If you hold any button down and don't let it go until it skips it, it'll just say not defined. So I'm holding the A button down and it skips it. And then when you get down, see right here, I accidentally pushed up as my hotkey. When you get to the very last one, you can go back and make any changes. So if you make a mistake, after you get to here, don't push OK. You can go back up and redo it if you mess up from here. But let's fix this hotkey. So all I'm going to do is push any button. And then the next button that I push needs to be select. So let's do that. And then let's finish doing the analog. So we're going to do up, down, left, left, right. And that is it. So that is how you configure your controller. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to configure a Bluetooth device. And so right here, we're pairing a Bluetooth device. And you can see it says it's successfully connected to my 8BitDo SN30 Pro. So now we have our Bluetooth controller configured. And let's say we want to use that one as player one. What we're going to do is where it says player one controller, we're going to pick that one. Then we're going to move the one that we had as player one to player two, and then we're going to turn on player three. The next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to change the theme of your Emuelec home screen. And so I am not a fan of this home screen. Mainly, I'm not upset with the way this screen looks, although there are a few graphical errors. It's mainly when you go into like N64. I just don't like the way scrolling through these levels look. And so I'll show you my favorite theme. But all you have to do is push start on your controller, go to UI settings, and theme set. You're going to see some themes installed on your device. And so I like this one, new Emuelec, and I like the way this looks better. So we can scroll through all the emulators here, and when you select one, it just looks a little bit easier on the eyes. In my opinion, this is my favorite one. Next up, I'm going to show you how to turn on and off bezels for your device. So let's load up Breath of Fire. You can see that when Breath of Fire starts up, we have pictures of the Super Nintendo on the left and right of the screen, which looks cool. I'm actually a fan of bezels, but if you play the game for a long time, you can get burn-in. So let's turn off the bezels. To do this, all you're going to do is hold A on your controller when you select the game. Do not just tap it. And this menu will pop up. From there, you're going to scroll down to Advanced Game Options. And then from this menu, we're going to go look for bezels. So here we have bezel. We're going to turn that from auto. We're going to turn that to no. And putting no here will turn off bezel for the game. So let's load up Breath of Fire again. So you can see here the game has loaded up. There are no bezels on the screen, which I think looks pretty clean. But let's say you want to play another Super Nintendo game and you forget to make that selection again. So here's Breath of Fire 2. Let's load that up. And you can see here Breath of Fire 2 loads up with bezels again. So let's make this apply to every Super Nintendo game in the catalog. So to do that, all we're going to do is push start on our controller. We're going to go down to Game Settings. Then from there, we're going to go all the way down towards the bottom. And we're going to go to Per System Advanced Configuration. From here, we're going to look for the emulator or system that we want to apply global settings to. You can see we've selected Nintendo, Super Nintendo. Now we're going to go to the global setting that we want to make apply to every Super Nintendo game. And so here we have bezels. They are turned on. It may be auto on your screen, but it also may say yes. Let's change that to no. And now, without making any changes to Breath of Fire 2, when we load it in, we're going to see that Breath of Fire 2 now loads up with no bezels. You do not have to make any changes before loading the game. Let's test another game. So here is Buzzbee 2. And we can see now that bezels have been turned off globally to every Super Nintendo game, but it doesn't affect other consoles. If you want to make those changes to other consoles, you have to select every single emulator that you want to make global changes to. Next up, I'm going to show you how to properly shut down your retro console. If you look online, a lot of people complain that their retro console worked, but after a few uses, the memory card corrupted and they weren't able to use it anymore. I think part of that to blame is that these devices were retrofitted from Android boxes that have a power switch on the actual exterior of the device. But before you press that button, I do recommend that you use this method here. If we push start on your controller and go down to quit, you have the option to restart the system or shut down the system. And so when we hit shut down the system, you're going to see that it might take a while to shut down. It says saving metadata, please wait. You do not want to power off your retro console when it's in this state, and you also don't want to just shut it off while you're playing a game. I think that is what's corrupting the memory card of these devices. I've had mine for over a year now, and I play it quite regularly, and I haven't had any issues with my memory card. So please, if there's one thing that you do from this video, it is power down your device. And so here you can see my device is now powered off, and the button on the back of my console, now I can press it off if I want to. I usually just unplug it, and then when I'm ready to play it again, I plug it in again. I never touch the button on the actual console. This next trick is going to show you how you can fix the aspect ratio of a game. So here you can see we loaded up a vertical shooting game. Those games typically have an aspect ratio of 9:16 or 3:4, but this game has the full screen shown, and so it uses every inch of the screen, but it does not look very good. So let's go ahead and exit out of this game and fix this problem. What we're going to do is we're going to hold A on the game. We're going to go to Advanced Game Options. Now, normally this is going to be set to auto. So if you see it set to auto, what you're going to do here is you're going to look up the aspect ratio for that specific game. So this game is 9:16, but sometimes it might be 4:3, sometimes it might be 3:4. If you look it up on Google, it'll tell you the exact aspect ratio desired for this game. And so now the picture is coming in much better. And depending on what TV you're playing on, this may or may not be a good thing for you. So I have this connected to an arcade cabinet where the screen's already kind of small. And then so to reduce the screen even more to make this a 9:16 is kind of a trade-off. But the video looks so much better when you have it at the correct aspect ratio. Games like Pac-Man, Galaga, This game here, you're going to need to have the aspect ratio adjusted. If it doesn't do it automatically, you now know how to do it. But I could play these vertical shooter games all day long. And so let's move on to the next tip. With close to 100,000 ROMs, I will tell you that not every single one of them is going to work or work perfectly. However, this next tip is going to help you troubleshoot some games in case you cannot play them. So here on the screen we have Bullfighter under the Arcade Classics category. I'm going to push A to load it up, and I'm going to show you the problem. So here we have a FB Neo error. ROMset is unknown. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push start and select. That's the same buttons you would push to exit out. What we're going to do is we're going to hold down A on our controller, and we're going to go to advanced game options. Now, a lot of games in here I can just play without having to do this troubleshooting. However, here we have Emulator. We're going to switch it from auto. We're just going to go down the list until we get the game to work. So here we have advanced MAME. So let's go ahead and switch it over and load the game again. And now we have the red screen of death. This is another one that you're going to see very often. If you see this screen, again, all you have to do is push start and select. You didn't break your device. It'll exit out. And then you're just going to hold A. You're going to go back to advanced game options, and you're going to switch it to the next emulator. We're on the second one down. And it looks like that one did the trick. So if you have any issues with the sound or video quality, you may have to continue switching through the emulators. But after playing this one, I can tell you that it does work. It does seem to have fixed the problem. And so now we're in this Bullfighters game. I'm not expecting to play it, but I wanted to show you how this worked. So here we go. You can see I'm playing Bullfighter. It is working. And now we are able to switch on to the next tip. Next, I'm going to show you how you can mark a game as favorite, so that way you can come back to it very quickly. In this folder, for instance, we have Arcade Classics with 2,500 games. Here we have Battletoads, and if I want to find it quickly, I can hold X on my controller until a star pops up next to it. And now, when we go over to favorites, we can see Battletoads has been added to the list. The great thing here is that any game through any folder is going to appear here in the favorites list. The other thing I want to show you is that here we have Battletoads in alphabetical order amongst all the games. If you want to put all your favorites at the top of the list, all you have to do is push start on your controller, go to UI settings, and under game list options, you're going to turn this feature on, show favorites on top. And now when you go into that folder, it'll show you your favorite games in that category. And then it'll start the list over for games that weren't marked as favorite. So I'll usually play a game, and whether I like it or not, I mark it as favorites just so that I know that I've played it. But there are many reasons why you may want to mark a game as favorites or not. The next thing I'm going to show you is how you can quickly find a game in here. So as you can see, 2,500 games. I'm just going to tap Y, and now we're going to search for a game. So let's search for, it's going to type in the word horse. I don't know if there's any game called horse, but if there is, you can see we have a game called American Horseshoes. We have Iron Horse. So let's say that's the game that I wanted. Now we can mark it as favorites. And so again, to do that, all we did was tap the Y button, and you don't have to know the actual name of the game. So let's say we have GH. So now any game that has the letters G and H next to each other, so Art of Fighting, Big Fight, Bullfighter, a lot of fighting in here. So you don't have to know the full name of the game, which helps if you're searching for a particular game and not quite sure what it's called. That's one way to do it. Another cool thing is if you are interested in just playing a random game, if you hold down the Y button, it'll put a random game up on the list. So I'm holding Y. Here we have Bullfighter. Next up, we have Street Fighter 2. So if you're like me and can never decide on a game, just push and hold Y. So here's a game. This one looks pretty interesting. Night Slashers. I've never seen this one before, but I'm going to hold it, make it a favorite. Maybe I'll come back and play it later. This next one is going to help you beat some of the old games that are out there, like Punch-Out. These games were notorious for being very difficult to beat, and if you ran out of lives, you went right back to the beginning of the game, and maybe you went to a checkpoint, but some of the harder fighters, you had to beat a couple before you could even get back to trying to beat the fighter that you wanted to progress to. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you the hotkey command. So if we hold down select on our controller and press X, you're going to get this menu. There are a lot of things you can do from this menu, but the one that I want to show you right now is how to save the game. And so here you can see we have the state slot label as 0. The 0 is on the right-hand side of your screen. If we hit save state, it's going to take that 0 and it's going to put the state of the game there. So let's let little Mac get beat up for a little bit. And so now you're ready to go back and try again. All you have to do is hold select and X, and you can load save state. So now we're back in time. We still have full health. And you can see Glass Joe is now taken out. So this is going to help you beat a lot of those old games that you only had so many lives and you couldn't mess up. Now, the next thing I want to show you is if you hold select and X, you can go to your save slot and now switch it over to 1. The reason why you might want to do that is in the heat of the moment, you might save over your last save. So now I'm over here. I may not want to continue here. I may want to continue from the previous save slot. So if I hold select and X, I can go to save slot, go back to 0, and now when we load the save state, we're going to go way back to that first knockdown, and now we can do it again. And so from here, we can hold select, hold X, or press X, go to save slot 1, load it, and now we're back over here, back in the future. Depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you may want to have multiple save slots. And honestly, if you progress far in a game and you just want to have 2 save states, what happens a lot of times is in the heat of the moment, you save over your previous spot, and now you can't recover your old save slot. So that's the most common reason to use that feature. The next thing I'm going to show you is if you hold the select button and push right bumper, it's also going to save the game. So if you don't want to have to go through that menu, you can hold select and right bumper, and then hold select and left bumper to load it back, just like that. So select and right bumper, saving it, select and left bumper, reloading it. I can tell you here the problem with that is in the heat of the moment, it is so easy to do save over versus loading. So unless you know for a fact you're not going to make that mistake, use the select and X. It slows it down just a little bit to make sure you don't overwrite your save. But if you get used to it and you want to take that chance or you have it backed up, you can hold select and left bumper, right bumper to accomplish what you want to do. This next tip is going to help you with some of these older games that had unskippable cutscenes, or you're just better at the game and just want to progress very quickly. This is going to be holding select and tapping the right trigger. So we're going to do that. And you can see here the game is now fast forwarded. And as you play this game, you're able to move much faster through the game. On a turn-based game like Breath of Fire, it may be better for you, or at least to save time, to play at this speed. You can always slow it down by holding select and then tapping down the button again. So here we're at normal speed. And I tell you, once you're used to playing a game at fast speed, it's almost impossible to go back down to slow speed. So another game that this works great for is Pokemon. But any of these older style RPGs, you'd probably want to speed it up. And that's just holding select and right trigger on your joystick. This next tip is going to show you how you can reconfigure your controller for the various fighting games found on this game. So let's load up Marvel Super Heroes vs. Street Fighter. So we have loaded into the game. Both players are being controlled by each controller that I have in front of me. So now what we're going to do is we're going to hold select on our controller and X to pull up this quick menu, and then you're going to scroll all the way down to controls. Once you're here, you can go to port 1 controls. That's only going to affect player 1. Port 2 controls is only going to affect player 2. And then where it says manage remap files, you can load and save remap files based on what you recently selected. So let's give you an example of what this looks like. If I push B on my controller, it's this lower kick. If I push A, it's this stronger kick. And then if I push right bumper, it's the heaviest kick. And so that's 1, 2, and 3. And then for punches, that's light, medium, and then heavy. And so now we're going to go back into our menu. And let's put all of our kicks on the top row and all of our punches on the bottom row. So we're going to do port 1 controls. And then this menu here shows you all the different types of ways to kick. And so if we see here, we want medium kick to stay where it's at, but we want to switch all the punches to the top row, or to the bottom row, and all the kicks to the top row. So we're going to switch this. We're going to make this medium punch. We're going to make this weak punch. We're going to make this medium kick. We're going to make this weak kick. So we're just alternating the buttons. And then so here, we want this to be strong kick. We want this to be strong punch. And so now, under port 1, and I know it's kind of, you'll have to take my word on this, but now when I hit the top row buttons, my kicks have been remapped to the top row, and the the punches have been mapped to the bottom row. Now, if you just exit out of the game, you're going to have to remap it. But if you go back to controls, manage remap files, you can save game remap files. So if you hit that button, you'll now have a quick save. And when we exit out of the game and re-enter it, you can see it says game remap file loaded when the screen started the game. And again, you'll have to take my word on it, but the bottom row are still punches, the top rows are still kicks. On the other controller, we never made that change, so when I go and hit the top row for this controller, the buttons haven't been swapped out yet. And so if I want to make some changes to that, all I have to do is go to controls, go to port 2, and now I'm able to make changes as needed to this. So if you ever have a friend that says, oh, I can't beat you because the controls are different, take the minute or two it takes to save their control scheme, and then there won't be any more excuses. So I think that's going to pretty much conclude this video. I hope this walkthrough of some tips and tricks for the Super Console X2 Pro have been helpful for you. Remember, it will work for any other Emuelec device that you may own. And if you haven't purchased one yet, be sure to go to the description of this video. I've had so much fun. For the $50 it cost me to get the Super Console X2 Pro, I've actually purchased several of these retro consoles and reviewed them here on my channel. So I have the Super Console X2 Pro that I just recently re-reviewed for 2025, and I do plan on doing the Super Console X4 Plus, and I'm also working on getting my hands on the Super Console X5, which is a little bit different from what other consoles I've reviewed before. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to drop me a comment in this video if you have any other questions that I didn't address here. I try to answer every question that I can. I do plan on troubleshooting anything that I encounter and showing you how I fix the problem. But if there's anything in here that you can't get done, I might have a solution for you that I can post a video on. But I hope that answers your questions. Thank you so much for watching. You have a good day.